is December 12th, 2011. Time is 6:36 p.m. Thomas Walton.
Present.
Steve Machowski.
He called me and told me he was not going to be able to make it.
Ed Nason. Here. Gary Ciccarone. Rick Charette. Jim Freeman.
Here.
Clifton Camp is called in and said he was going to be absent today.
We do have alternate.
Okay.
Are you present?
I'm present.
Rick Thacker. Okay, great. Charlotte Coleman.
Here.
Rob Collins.
Here.
And Ed Comeau.
Here.
Okay, so we have
We're missing three.
three. That's correct.
So we have three alternates and we're missing three, so all three of you get to be on the board tonight. Why don't we have Booney, why don't you sit in for Gary?
Okay.
Rob, why don't you sit in for Rick? And Ed, why don't you sit in for, who's it? Steven, sorry. Thanks for joining me up here on the firing squad. You're welcome. Okay. All right, that's item number 2. Item number 3, announcements, correspondence, and mail. Favorite part of the night. We have a new copy of Town and City for the month of November/December. I just looked at it a few minutes ago. It's nice, please enjoy it if you'd like to look at it. We received a courtesy catalog from the New Hampshire Local Government Center of their various publications they put out every single year. The only one that would be of real interest to this board would be one called Knowing the Territory, which the selectmen have mentioned to me in the past. It's just an overview of the local government, you know, things we might want to know. However, we don't have anything in the budget for it. So, if you want to buy it, it's on your dime. Okay, we received an update from FEMA and the floodplain folks. If you remember last month, we talked about the amendments to the zoning ordinance regarding the floodplains. Their new letter, which was dated the 23rd of November, which was after our last meeting, is actually addressed to Ernie. It says, on the 29th of April, Federal Emergency Management Agency issued preliminary digital flood insurance rate maps and a flood insurance study report and a DVD containing the flood hazard data to your community. Essentially, it goes on, it's a very nice form letter, saying that the first stuff they sent out was the first draft. This is a final draft. And they actually advise us at the end to throw the original draft and hard copies away. They've put it all on here, and it says, we'll be starting the official review and comment period shortly. You will receive information regarding the initiation of the period under separate cover. Your community's comments on the preliminary materials are important part of our mapping process, and we will consider them carefully before we publish the final form. The only question I could possibly think of for them, and I'm not even sure it's worth asking, is can they come up with a definitive definition as to whether or not that area of town is really a flood zone? I remember back in...
Of course it is.
It is, but they said we had a 100-year flood and nothing flooded.
Yeah.
So are those houses really in the zone?
The houses themselves, I don't believe, it's the property, as long as the property is in.
Within the boundary, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That's the only thing that popped up off the top of my head. So I'll take a look at this stuff and follow along. And, okay, other correspondence. There's printouts up here for everybody if you haven't already got one. After our last meeting, there was a question of, do we need to have a special meeting 2 weeks later to discuss issues related to conditional use permit and having a special meeting to make a zoning ordinance change, potentially. Here there's some correspondence here about my correspondence to Laura. So on the 21st, I wrote her the following letter. At our last meeting on November 14th, I read your response below to the full planning board. Most members of the board were very surprised. Most of us had believed that the board could unilaterally put a time limit on conditional use. This brings up several questions regarding the validity of our zoning. The members are concerned that if there are defects in the zoning, we may need to have a special meeting next week to begin drafting an amendment to correct any identified problems. Excuse me. Article 2B, 4B2 through 8 of the zoning ordinance dated 3/8/11, Page 553 covers conditional uses in the REC1 district. Question 1. Article 2B4B2 refers to the ability of the planning board to put an expiration date on the conditional use permit. If I understand correctly, this is not legal, but could be correct and stay in the zoning to allow for a scenario of a landowner requesting a time-limited conditional use permit. Could you please review this section and let me know if this needs to be amended to be legally compliant? Question 2. Article 2B4B4 refers to the renewal of expiring conditional use permits. Should this permit be removed or allowed to stay? A landowner could request a time-limited conditional use permit. Earlier this year, our administrative assistant, George, sent you a certified copy of the zoning ordinance dated 3/8/11. If you cannot find it in your files, please let me know. Sincerely, Tom Wellman. And her response back, which came a little later. Oh, this is the wrong one, George. Did I give you both? This is the one from Pat. Oh, hold on a second. I don't think I gave you both. Well, anyway, her response essentially was that there is no settled case law on this. I'll get copies to you. It's just in the office. What her initial response was very technical, saying that no, it's not legal. And the reason she essentially said no, it's not legal is because it's not spelled out in the RSAs.
No, it being the...
It being time limits on conditional use permits.
Okay.
It being we as a board putting a time limit on a conditional use permit is not specifically prohibited in the RSAs. In fact, I went and looked at the RSAs today just because I wanted to follow up on this. And the word conditional use is one place, and that's it. It's under innovative land use, and it doesn't even define what it is or is not. And I'm sorry I didn't get it photocopied, but you'll get a copy in a second. Her response was essentially that it's a gray area. There is no case law on this. We have specifically already put it in the zoning, and the voters have approved it, that we as a board can set time limits. However, it's not specifically prohibited, and there is no settled case law. So her feeling is, if you want to put a time limit on this, go ahead.
In other words, she's saying
Because
let it rot.
we have standing in our actions with the town, as well as the person who was the owner at the time knew all this was going on and could have fought it if he felt it was objectionable, that we do have standing to say that we could put a time limit on this because it has gone through the process and everybody was aware of it. So let me just read a quick bit of it. Second sentence. As a general rule, my answer is correct. The board cannot put time limit on variances, special exceptions, or conditional use permits. However, whereas in Brookfield, the zoning ordinance itself allows the board to put time limits on conditional use permits, the question becomes less clear. Since conditional use permits are not required by the Constitution as are variances, and since they are innovative land use controls, unlike special exceptions, it is not clear that the legislative body cannot give the board the authority to impose time limits on conditional use permits. There is no case law on this issue, but we certainly could make the argument. So I interpret that, and I'd like to hear your feedback. I see that as a go ahead and put it in there as a time limit that we as a board can put it on. There's no case law on it.
We belong.
Where we establish the conditional use,
Right.
we establish it with a condition that we would be able to
Correct.
put in time limits,
This-
and that should stay.
That's right. I'm sorry. I cut you off there.
Oh, no.
I'd just like to jump in the conversation. No, I think that was the above board, made public to everybody as the process went along, that there would be time limits on these things. And everybody was a part of that process. The town, the landowner, everybody. We went to multiple hearings, so everybody knew what was going on, passed the legislative body. There's no reason why we shouldn't. And if the current or future owner actually chooses to go down this road and have a conditional use and fight this in court, they certainly have the option because there's no settled law on this. So that was her answer. That's why I did not call a special meeting, because our first answer seemed like we're going to have one. Second answer, no. So does anybody have any questions on this one? Yes.
Just two quick comments. First, her answer includes the statement that the only landowner in the zone is Moose Mountain, and it's not quite true. I just want to note that. Not that I think it's a big deal.
Yep.
And the other is, why didn't we hear about the question of whether or not we could have a time limit when the zoning ordinance was originally reviewed by the attorney. I believe it was the same attorney we were talking about.
Yes, we did have Laura back at that point, and I didn't push that question. I understand where you're going, saying, why didn't she catch this then? If she was reviewing the zoning, why didn't she catch this catch-22 back then? And honestly, I was just so happy to get the answer I did, I didn't push the question. But I'd be glad to push the question further if you're unhappy with the quality of her services.
I think, well, it would have been nice to know that there was this gray area if there, back
Sure.
then. And even we probably would have done exactly what we did anyway, but it's not nice to be surprised a year and a half later.
I do agree.
Perhaps we should remember that.
Yes. Well, this is continuous learning process. I think we've seen that. Are there any other questions about this interaction with the town attorney? Okay. There's one more piece of correspondence which is photocopied up here. It's from a person named Pat Morass. I don't know if it's a gentleman or a lady. It just says here, hello Tom, I received your contact information from Jessica over at the town office, the Brookfield town office. My name is Patrick Morass and I work for FB Environmental. We are currently developing a watershed-based plan for Lake Wentworth and Wolfboro. A portion of the watershed for Lake Wentworth extends into Brookfield. As part of the plan, we are performing an ordinance review, specifically land use ordinances for the towns of Wolfboro and Brookfield. I've been in touch with Jessica and she informed me earlier that as the chair of the planning board, you may have access to an electronic file of Brookfield ordinances. Do you currently have access to the electronic file in the town's ordinances? Could you send it to me? It would be a huge help. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me via email or my office number listed below. I'm going to have George email him the electronic copy. I do have electronic copies, but I don't want to distribute them because George holds our master copy. And God forbid I send out a copy that is somehow incorrect to somebody. So I waited to delegate this to George when I saw him again. So I would like to know why.
But shouldn't that copy be on the web? It used to be on the web.
It used to be, but actually he got his training tonight to upload documents.
So it will be.
It will be soon. Right, George?
Yes, there's still some process that has to be worked out. All documents are supposed to be PDF that are loaded on there.
Right.
And the software that we have this time does not allow me to do that.
Okay.
So we're trying to work through that at this point.
I can create PDFs if you need it short term.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so announcements, correspondence, mail. So that's the mail. The only other announcement really is just what you were going to say is that, what you mentioned is George now has the access. It was brought up previously by Steve Patrick when he was very concerned that we weren't posting minutes and agendas and things on the website. He decided to call me on that and said, how come this isn't going on? So we've been working with Jennifer Sonricker and Rose Hacker and trying to get this all worked out for training. And today George had his training, so I guess he's all trained now, working on getting stuff uploaded. So
Careful, he's going to want more money.
I don't know. I'll have to keep an eye on that. So yes, very shortly, within the next week or two, we should have a good start on getting all the stuff up there and uploaded and updated.
So we can expect to see our minutes and
ahead of time.
agendas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I mean, we're still going to, now obviously the email is fixed because you all got the email. That's why I sent out the test messages. I wasn't sure if it was working. But yes, so that is fixed. The town has gotten that corrected for now. Okay. Public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? Okay, hearing none. Item number 5, review and possible approval of the minutes for November 14th planning board meeting.